Hello everyone and good morning or good afternoon or good evening depending on what time you're watching this video. Morning for me right now. We're going to be looking at the 2.10 lesson practice. So this was the lesson about the sheep and graphing our inequalities. So to look at the lesson summary first, it says you can solve any one variable inequality by solving its corresponding equation to determine the boundary point, and then testing values to determine the rest of the solutions. So here's an example of how you could solve the inequality. 10 is greater than negative 3x minus 2. You could solve the corresponding equation of 10 equals negative 3x minus 2. Add 2 to both sides to get 12 equals negative 3x. Divide by negative 3 to get x is negative 4. Now, the solution to this equation is negative 4, so that's where your boundary point is going to be. Since it's a greater than symbol, it's going to be an open circle on negative 4. And to figure out if we're shading to the left or to the right, we can test some values. So they chose to test negative 5 and 0. Negative 5 is to the left of negative 4, 0 is to the right. So since we got a true solution with 0, we are going to shade to the right. Okay, so the solutions to an inequality don't always have the same inequality symbol as the original one, right? What happened here is when we divided by negative 3, when you divide by a negative, you flip the symbol. So I like to keep the symbol in there and then just use that to make my graph. But if you want to turn it into an equation first and then test points, incredible, awesome method. Let's look at slide 2 and do some practice together. So this says enter 3 values of n that make this inequality true. So we have negative 5, parentheses, n plus 1 is greater than 10. I am going to move this negative 5 to the other side. It's being multiplied right now, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5. It'll cancel out on the left. We're just left with n plus 1. Because we divided by a negative, we have to flip the symbol, and then we get negative 2. Last step, subtract 1 on both sides, and we get n is less than negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. So we're looking for numbers that are smaller than negative 3, like negative 4, negative 5, negative 22. Anything that's smaller than negative 3 is going to work for this one. So go ahead and plug in the values that you got, and when you're ready, push ahead to slide 3. Okay, let's do another one. So for this one, I'm going to do it how the lesson is encouraging us to do it. So we're going to make an equal sign. So we're going to have 7x plus 6 equals 3x plus 2. Okay. Now we can subtract 3x on both sides. 7x minus 3x is 4x. Plus 6 equals 2. Subtract 6 on both sides. Bring down that 4x equals 2 minus 6 is negative 4. And our last step is to divide both sides by 4. And we get x equals negative 1. So there's our boundary point. If we're thinking of a number line, right, here's negative 1. To the right of negative 1, we have 0 and all the positive numbers. To the left, we have negative 2, negative 3, all the negative numbers. So we know that our point is on, ooh, wow, that's so messy, is on negative 1. We don't know which way we're shading. So I'm going to plug in 0. 0 is always a great number to plug in. So instead of 7 times x, we have 7 times 0 plus 6 is less than 3 times 0 plus 2. 7 times 0 is 0 plus 6 is less than 3 times 0 is 0 plus 2. So we get 6 is less than 2, which of course we know is false, which means we are shading this way to the left. So we're going to have negative 2 and negative 8. The other options are not going to work. Because it's just a less than symbol, not less than or equal to, we cannot include negative 1 in our solution. So I only had to test 1 point, because once you test 1 point, you know which direction you're going to go. I could test a negative point to verify, but this feels good to me. So when you're ready, push ahead to slide 4. Solve each inequality. Okay, let's look at the first one. We have 4x plus 5 is greater than or equal to 37. So we want to get rid of this plus 5 first by subtracting it and moving it over to the other side. Then we have 4x is greater than or equal to 37 minus 5 is 32. Divide both sides by 4. And we get x is greater than or equal to 8. Make sure you're typing in your symbol correctly. Okay. I'm going to clear my board here and look at the second problem, which is negative 3x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 12. So to move this plus 4, we're going to subtract 4 on both sides. And then we get negative 3x is greater than or equal to negative 12, or positive 12 minus 4 is 8. Yep. And then divide both sides by negative 3. And when we divide by a negative, we gotta flip that sign. So this becomes x is less than or equal to 8 divided by negative 3, or negative 8/3. Beautiful. Once you're all set with that, push to slide 5. Just continuing to solve some inequalities here. The first one has negative 6 plus x divided by 2 is less than 7. We're going to get rid of this negative 6 first by adding 6 to both sides. And then we get x divided by 2 is less than 13. Opposite of dividing by 2 is multiplying by 2. So 2 divided by 2 will cancel. Beautiful. And we're left with x is less than 13 times 2 is 26. Make sure you're typing the whole inequality in. Beautiful. I shall clear my board. Next one is negative 8x minus 6 is greater than 2x minus 26. We can add 6 to both sides first. Then we have negative 8x is greater than 2x minus 20. Negative 26 plus 6 is 20, negative 20. Let's get our x's on the same side by subtracting 2x on the left and the right. Negative 8x minus another 2x is a negative 10x is greater than negative 20. And then when we divide both sides by negative 10, we remember that if we divide by a negative, we gotta flip the sign. So this becomes x is less than negative 20 divided by negative 10 is a positive 2. And then you can submit. Beautiful. Go to the next slide when you're ready. Which inequality is represented by this graph? Ooh, this is fun. Okay, so let's take a look at this graph and figure this out. First of all, I noticed that it's a closed circle and it's going to the left, right? Left is less than, and we have a closed circle. So we know that it cannot be this one, this first one, because that would have an open circle because it doesn't have the or equal to underneath. So let's try the one next to it, which is 2x plus 6 is greater than or equal to 10. So we could subtract 6 on both sides to get 2x is greater than or equal to 4. Divide everything by 2 to get x is greater than or equal to 2. So this would have a closed circle on 2, but it would be going to the right, so it cannot be that option. Let's try the one underneath it. Negative 2x minus 6 is greater than or equal to negative 10. So if we add 6 to both sides first, we'd get negative 2x is greater than or equal to negative 10 plus 6 is negative 4. Divide both sides by negative 2, flip that sign, and we get x is less than or equal to 2, which works. All right, we have our test point at 2, and it's circled, colored in, which means it can be equal to 2, and it's shaded to the left. So we're going to choose this option. Beautiful. There's our graph. Let's push to slide 7 when you're ready. Make two inequalities equivalent by filling in each blank using the numbers 0 to 9 once. Okay. So let's do 2x plus 7 is less than 4x plus 1. And let's solve it and see what we get. When we solve this, we could subtract 7 on both sides. And we'd get 2x is less than 4x. 1 minus 7 is a negative 6. And then we would subtract 4x on both sides. 2x minus 4x is a negative 2x. Is less than negative 6. So I'm just going to bring this up here. And our last step would be to divide by a negative 2, which is of course going to flip that sign to get x is greater than 3. Yay, which is a number we haven't used. So this is one option. There's many more that you could find throughout this problem. So experiment, have fun, and play around, and then push to slide 8. Rewrite each expression as a single power of 10. Okay, so we have, actually I'm going to pause the video and we'll do this in part 2 because I don't want to rush us and we only have a few seconds left. So come back for part 2 for the 2 spiral review slides.